Private investors might occasionally lack the required contacts or knowledge of the UK's specialised infrastructure market. The pipeline of infrastructure projects in the UK is outlined for foreign investors on the government's capital investment portal. According to the government, the National Infrastructure Strategy will set forth the goals for economic infrastructure. However, such infrastructure initiatives fail in the absence of help and support. The government must actively promote infrastructure as a sector with numerous investment opportunities. There are, of course, exceptions. For instance, the privately funded Heathrow Southern Rail link includes investment in part from ECM. This is one of the first initiatives under government plans to solicit additional funding from institutions, like local governments, and for-profit businesses, on top of the £47 billion the government invested over a 5-year period. Investment in infrastructure is frequently criticised for being unpredictable and risky. Sometimes toll roads do not perform up to expectations, projects run behind schedule, and project costs end up being much higher than expected. With the collection and easy access to accurate, current data on the costs and performance of infrastructure projects, better decisions can be made and investor confidence in the sector increases. It is crucial to provide information to private investors because they need fully developed, fleshed-out investment options. Investors prefer to fund assets, projects, and programs that have a track record of success. Investors will not be eager to assess the advantages and disadvantages of projects based on conjecture and outdated data. Private investors are able to forecast and project long-term revenue streams thanks to data on the financial performance and costs of UK infrastructure projects. The government must improve communication between the public and private sectors and increase data collection if it hopes to attract capital sources that in the past would not have been knowledgeable and confident enough to invest. It entails providing the private sector with realistic, data-driven, and outcome-driven investment opportunities. The public and private sectors have the chance to collaborate during the design stage in order to share data and enable investors to offer early feedback on a project. The government can further encourage private investment by creating strategies and organizations specifically for financing infrastructure. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, which was founded to support infrastructure development in the Asia-Pacific region, is one example of this. Value capture is an additional tool. This expression, which is often used in close proximity to new transportation hubs, describes how infrastructure investment increases land values, allowing city and transit landowners to profit from their investment for use in the future, such as spending on public spaces, housing, and educational facilities. Innovative strategies to mobilize private capital were more needed than ever as Britain left the European Union. The European Investment Bank has been working for decades to bring private capital to infrastructure projects, even though the UK's membership in the bank came to an end after Brexit. Institutions in the UK that finance infrastructure must be tough. They have already demonstrated the government's capacity for carrying out this kind of work. The state created the Green Investment Group in the renewable energy sector in 2012. The UK's renewable energy projects received £3.4 billion from Macquarie, a private bank and the biggest infrastructure asset manager in the world. It demonstrates how the government can establish businesses and programs that support infrastructure, which can then be given to the private sector for funding. It is possible to incorporate recommendations from business. In fact, as demonstrated by the Heathrow Southern Rail link, it is in a position to innovate and be inspired by other industries. The UK government's Market-Led Proposals (MLPs) initiative is a step in the right direction toward promoting ideas from the business community. This strategy essentially gives the private sector a way to suggest projects for infrastructure improvement. The first rail project submissions are introduced. After evaluating these ideas, the government selected a few that should be taken further by businesses. The MLP process is a preliminary evaluation of the government's ability to promote rail investment by displaying its willingness to work with the private sector. Identify the phase of an infrastructure project that will best suit investors and connect them with it. Private sources of funding can take many different forms, including banks, funds, pension providers, and small businesses. The time horizon for investments and risk tolerance of each individual will vary. If you offer private investors the right initiatives at the ideal time and stage for their needs, they should be more inclined to decide to invest. To achieve this, the public and private sectors must come to terms on a common goal that will meet both the needs of the public and the aspirations of the private sector for investment returns. An infrastructure fund that is specifically listed on the London Stock Exchange will have a significantly different risk appetite than a foreign pension fund that is new to investing in UK infrastructure. In return for greater profits, a pension fund needs returns that are steady, predictable, and long-term in order to meet its obligations, returns that can be produced by infrastructure that is already in place and functioning effectively. However, a listed fund that is already accustomed to the market will likely have a much higher tolerance for uncertainty and may be willing to invest during the riskier construction phase of a project in exchange for greater profits. It is clear that fostering communication between the public and private sectors is necessary, regardless of party politics. Investors may be asked to consider state-backed infrastructure investments by the government, and the private sector can find a place to put the money it needs to invest. Each can help the other in some way. When taxpayers do not have to spend a significant amount of money to acquire urgently required infrastructure, everyone wins. The government must first offer long-term guarantees and protection to these potential investors before asking them to make long-term, multi-billion-dollar or multi-billion-pound commitments. The government is deviating from the customary 5-year investment cycle for train upgrades, and similar strategies can be used for other types of infrastructure as well. This is a good thing. The Rail Network Enhancements Pipeline (RNEP) strategy is the same whether the investment is made with public or private funds. That both financing sources would be considered equally is a clear statement. Additionally, over the course of the following 10 years of work, Consumer Trading Organisation Limited will host evaluations of significant data.